Welcome into Big Hitters Only. We have a very special episode. This is going to be very different from anything you've heard. We've done the Eastern Michigan Athletic Director. We've done the Marathon podcast. This is a podcast about the Blue Zone. And joining me now, we have Mr. BZ, we have Wayne House, and we have Keaton Brewer. And I want Wayne to set this up. But first, nice wave, Keaton. But first, I want you to rate, review, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, spread the word, and tell a friend. If you like this episode, if it's something different, tell a friend and get them involved with Big Hitters Only. Okay, this is Wayne's brainchild. Wayne, kind of break down what this episode is going to be like.
Well, accepting a lot of responsibility, accepting the weight of the Blue Zone on my shoulders, but the shoulders are broad. Look, the Blue Zone is this incredible enigma for Carolina fans, right? It, in many ways, could be some of the people who support the program the most, and also they draw the ire of most fans, and certainly on the Twitter Inside Carolina, which I'm supporting today, message board community. So considering it's an off week, considering that you frequented the Blue Zone last week for the Georgia Tech debacle, we thought it would be a good time to just break this thing down, get an understanding of the sights, the sounds, the feel, all that stuff. And frankly, I'll kick it off right here, which what I want to know is, Mr. BZ, can you break down what happens each week when the Blue Zone menu comes out? It's like, what's your process there, right? Like, is it like getting a tea time where you set like multiple alarms on your phone to make sure that I'm there to get my Friday tea time at 7 a.m. when the app opens? KB knows exactly what I'm talking about. Is that the same thing when the Blue Zone menu comes out? I mean, and then you start talking about, then you start planning, well, hey, I know I want the spare rib, and how are we looking for the potato salad? I mean, break that down for me, because when IC starts opening up what's on the menu in the Blue Zone this week, that is, I can't get enough of those threads.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Once I discovered the Carolina Athletic Hospitality website and got the up-to-date menus for each home game, it would be a constant check each week to see what was going on. I will say there's a go-to for me if we want to break it down. The nacho station is the go-to. So like some of the other stuff, I'm not hitting it week in, week out, but the nacho station is a go-to for us. But we will discuss, my friends and I who have tickets around us, kind of friends and family in the section around us.
The breakfast nacho station at Georgia Tech may have been the highlight of the game for me.
That was a new one for me. I've seen the nacho station, but I've never seen the breakfast nacho station. And it was a hit.
So break it down for those that are just dialing in. Again, there are these the Blue Zone menu, but Ross, for people that aren't aware of the Blue Zone, like break this thing down.
Let's get it back on track here. Keaton, talk a little louder when you go on. But all right, the Blue Zone's at the end of the other end zone. The team comes out of the KFC, Kenan Flagler Center. The Blue Zone is a relatively new addition to Kenan Stadium. It kind of conjoins with Rams Head, and it used to be the opposing team's locker room, the field house. And when I was growing up going to UNC games, the Blue Zone did not exist. It was created around the Butch Davis era, and you can now.
Thanks to Charlie Loudermilk. Great done.
Aaron's Rentals. If you're ever Aaron's Rentals, that's Charlie Loudermilk.
Yeah, and it is a place where you can buy premium seating. So you buy a special ticket, a season ticket, and you can sit in certain areas. Now, there's the lower Blue Zone, and what I discovered this weekend, there is the upper Blue Zone. I did not know that existed until my good friend Keaton Brewer got us tickets. Me and my lovely girlfriend, Keaton, his lovely girlfriend, got us tickets to the upper Blue Zone, where we ran into Mr. BZ, an electric meeting, both of us a couple drinks deep. And
it was about time. It was about time, Ross.
It's just the upper crust, man. I didn't know it existed up there. Keaton, break down. All right, we know Keaton, the joke we always have is Keaton doesn't sit in GA. Why do you prefer the Blue Zone, Keaton? What makes it special for you? And if you can talk a little bit louder or getting closer to your mic.
Yeah, fun fact, I've actually never sat in general seating in Kenan Memorial Stadium, and I never will. That's just standard. I think there's two different parts, like you mentioned, Ross. Like I think one of the best seats in the house is the upper blue zone. I think it's got a great vantage point. I actually do prefer the end zone view. I like to watch the offensive line work. I like the perspective of the game from there. But I think the action, although I think that is the best seat, I love having my little TV so I can scroll through, other games going on. I like the rolly chairs. I like it's just a nicer experience. However, though, downstairs is where all the action is, right? I mean, you run into so many people, and I think that's what makes it so special from a positive perspective is it's like a tailgate within the game. Like you got your drinks flowing, you got your spread set out, great bathroom service, which is very important. And you got other games going on, air conditioning, heat when it's hot. I don't like to be uncomfortable. So Blue Zone is definitely the spot for me.
That's a great point. It's a tailgate within the game. You go inside, you're running into Will Scroggs, you're running into Brian Chakos, you're running into Rams Head big hitters, you're running into families, a lot of F3 members. I mean, XYZ. You see everybody, athletes, former athletes. They're in the Blue Zone, and I think we're going to turn here to Mr. BZ. What you like about it? Because you said you sat in the Blue Zone while you were a student at UNC, which blew my mind. I think times have changed since I was in a fraternity at UNC. Break down what the allure is for you sitting in the Blue Zone and where you like to sit in your vantage point.
Yeah, it is like a little different than than other seating, than other like where other people are, but honestly, like can be nothing but grateful. Like it's honestly nice for us because our entire section is friends and family that have been there like since they got tickets. They kind of coordinated together. I think it was like after the Fedora era when people were kind of maybe moving out and seats were available, but all got seats together. So that's what's fun for me is when we got a squad of like 4 or 5 of us, and that's just like who I was with in college. That doesn't even include like when my parents come into town, when their parents come into town, friends of friends. So we have a whole section there that kind of gets routed together. It's a lot of fun for us. And like I think Keaton mentioned, the view is a lucky view. I feel like people might not.
A lucky view,
dude. It's great. Like you get the bell tower, like you get the sunset in the back. Or maybe not for noon kickoffs this year, but it's great. I mean, it's fun for us because we just have friends all around us, so it makes the games fun. We get to get rowdy as much as we can all together.
Really. Yeah, really painting the picture there. You do, I think, the upper Blue Zone as a first-time upper Blue Zone virgin, which was taken away from me last weekend. You do have more of a vertical angle down, so where in the lower Blue Zone, you don't see as much depth of field, depth perception. Like when they're far in the far end zone, if you're in the lower Blue Zone, you can't really see what's going on. But if you're high up in the upper Blue Zone, you can see better farther on the field. Plus, you have the view of seeing the all-22 from behind, like Keaton said, coach's son. You get to see the plays develop, the offensive line, the pulling guards, the running backs, the different route runs. Where if you're midfield, on the GA normal seats, your perspective is not from that angle. Now, you do see maybe more of the field wide-wise, but upper Blue Zone's hard to beat. And as Mr. BZ said, man, sunset, bell tower.
Dude, it's great.
Football in a forest.
So you're telling me, I always thought that the Blue Zone was the general admission, section 129, where I sit. That was for more hand in the dirt guys, hand in the turf now guys. But you're telling me, you're making it sound like really to see the all 22s, actually the Blue Zone is the place for the real hand in the dirt hitters. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what they say. That's what they say.
Now, I think Keaton can touch on this one. I think Wayne brought up a great point. The people these tickets cost more. I mean, some of the biggest fans I know are in the Blue Zone. And there's this idea that people don't watch the game. They go inside, the air conditioning. You see the empty blue seats in the Blue Zone compared to maybe more full of seats. And of course, this is different for this season. This season is a little special because of how bad the team is. But some of the biggest donors, the biggest contributors to the program and to the team are in the Blue Zone, like a Keaton Brewer, like a Clint Winslow, people that are giving real money. Keaton, your thoughts on kind of the type of people you see in the Blue Zone that are really invested in the program versus what you might see in GA?
Well, I've had this argument on Inside Carolina. I won't reveal my handle for security reasons, but people get so butthurt about just it being empty or whatever. But it's not like people aren't watching the game or cheering. And certainly, I remember the Duke game a few years ago where he intercepted it right in the end zone, right in front of us. I mean, that place.
Chad Surratt, right?
It was going wild, right? There is an atmosphere when there's something to have an atmosphere about. And I think your point's great, Ross. Like, that is where the program monetarily is being supported from, that and the Pope box, right? I mean, that's it. So I think that people can get mad, but for me and Wayne, we have young kids, right? I think it's a great place for families. Billy, in sitting through 4 quarters, if he wants to have 500 ice creams and run around the lower blue zone, well, fine with me, because I'm sitting in the seat enjoying a few Coors Lights. I mean, it's a great win. It's a win for everybody. So I think it's the upper echelon. I mean, Ross, think about how many people we ran into in 5 minutes in the Blues. I mean, that's your probably top 10 biggest donors that we ran into for Carolina football.
Yeah, let me set the scene for you, Wayne. Go ahead, BZ.
I was just going to say, that's what's nice, like how he mentioned the friends. Like, my dad played tennis at Carolina, and so it's all him and his, like, tennis buddies that were on the team with him. So it gives them an opportunity, like, each year, a couple times in the fall, to meet back on the weekend, reunite in Chapel Hill, have a weekend together. So it's a ton of fun for them, and I feel like that's kind of the allure is everyone getting to meet up there. All the
BZ's bringing the emotional, sentimental angle. To paint the picture here, Wayne, I'm upset with
what this place means to me.
Yeah, I mean, come on, give me a break. All right, let me paint the picture for you, Wayne. So I'm sitting with Keaton, and Keaton's like, that guy, probably a top 10 donor. I go shake his hand, Greensboro guy. Then I'm going to the bathroom, and like,
fan of yours too, I bet.
Yeah. And as I'm like going into the bathroom, use the urinal, another big hitter who I recognize him because of how much time he spends with Mac Brown at practices, for press conferences. I know who this guy is, and I'm shaking his hand, introducing myself. And truly, he is a guy that helped bring Mac back, probably has the power to take Mac out. When you have those two types of people who can bring a head coach in and take a head coach out, I mean, those are big hitters only. Like, those are guys that are moving and shaking the football program. Like Keaton said, like, they're making decisions about maybe not just the program, but other things like building projects, and they reside in the blue zone. Whereas in GA, you're getting people, hey, Billy, Bobby, can I get a ticket to go see the game? They're coming in from, Durham or Asheville or Greensboro. They're coming in for one game. They're getting GA seats half off. Blue Zone's a little bit different. All right, let's move into our lineup of kind of questions here. We touched on the food and drink. Wayne was great and kind of firing off the podcast with a taco bar question. The ice cream is great. I would like to see ice cream sandwiches. I think the soda machines are great.
Well, hold on. Set the scene here. So is it like what I mean, again, for
the Tar
Heel Tim, who sits in section 211 for 52 years. I mean, take me there. You smell it. You walk in. Are there just chefs everywhere? I mean, first off, attire. Like, what are you supposed to wear? I mean, I wore my jacket tonight because I thought maybe, but like, what does this place look like?
All right, let's start with food. Let's not get food out of the way. All right, Keaton, what's the layout on food?
So I think they're both pretty similar, right? You got bars on both ends. So you walk in, you got 2 bars on either end. They're serving Coors Lights, seltzers,
IPAs,
et cetera. Nothing, no
wine,
no brown
stuff.
Unfortunately.
Upper Blue Zone has liquor and wine, right? Or just wine?
Whoa.
Just the sweets.
Just wine. Just wine.
Okay.
So little perk there. But dead center, you got, your stations, you got your taco bar, whatever it may have. You got your hot dogs and hamburgers and pulled pork and et cetera. And then kind of between your main station and the end at the bars there's spread of cookies, there's brownies, there's those little pop things, there's the soda machines are right there, right? I mean, the popcorn machines are flowing, all 3 different flavors every week, which is fantastic. You got
Keaton, I've got to ask, what happened with the original dessert setup? Because originally that was when you'd walk out of the elevator right in that main area, but when I walked in for Georgia Tech this past weekend, it was not that, like, the popcorn, the dessert, the
big time insight here.
Maybe we're cutting budget a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing, and I think the food rotates, right? Like every like Wayne alluded to, like every week it's a different type of thing. Like it's not always top. I feel like we're getting a lot of Mexican food. There's like pulled pork or chicken, fried chicken. Go ahead, Mr. BZ. You're the expert.
I got it
Take
pulled
the
up
lead.
right here, actually, according to the hospitality website. So we've got game day favorites. So you're looking there at, like you said, the hot dogs, the smoked pork, the beef brisket, chicken tenders, all the essentials. And then what filters out each week, what rotates, is their spotlight items, which for Georgia Tech we were looking at shrimp and grits bowl and the
Ooh,
Fieldhouse
I missed that.
burger.
Wow.
So I think the spotlight items, as they call them, is what rotates each week,
I mean, can you
and that's
blame
where you
people
might have
for
some
being
exotic
inside?
food. What'd you
could
say?
watch us not get 2 fourth downs in a row, or you could be having shrimp and grits. I'd rather have shrimp and grits.
That might be the problem. Maybe they need to make the food worse, so people
Yeah,
will be
sorry,
outside
Carrie.
more.
My argument is like I'm eating so much at the tailgate, I get into the blue zone and I'm not hungry anymore. Or coming down from the press box, I'm not hungry anymore.
Yeah, but Ross, I
Yeah,
think
you
a lot
got
of
to
people
look out for
use-
that. That's not a seasoned move by you,
I
Ross. You
think
got
a
to
lot of
prepare
people
for
use the
that.
blue zone as their tailgate, right? Like you get in there a little bit early, you try to get your food. I mean, unfortunately, Carolina does not have the greatest tailgating scene. I think we do a pretty good job. Ross and Wayne, I see you every Saturday before the game, but we strive to have that tailgate going. But I think a lot of people just jump in there. We're going to get in early, get our food, get a few beverages in us, and then try to sit out and watch the game. So I think that's kind of the pro move.
Yeah, pro move is I fast all day Saturday until I know I'm getting to the blue zone.
I think it is good for kids. I mean, kids have access to ice cream or an easy hot dog, easy hamburger. You don't have to worry about food for that. It does make a lot of sense. All right, let's go. This is kind of what my realm outfits. What type of clothes do you see? And I don't know, Mr. B style. I mean, Mr. BZ and I are we've only known each other for about 4 days now, but Wayne and Keaton are well versed in the golf attire, the business casual attire. So I mean, I'm just gonna go off the cuff here on what I see, and I want Wayne and Keaton to dive in here. I mean, you have the classic kind of frat dad look. You got the Lululemon pants with a button down or a game day polo and a vest with a nice pair of shoes, where that be kind of on clouds. And then you have preppier things with the like a sweater vest or a a V-neck vest. Keaton, anything that stand out to you that you saw that you liked? The older guys definitely dressed a little nicer, like the guy we ran into there in the upper blue zone. But I mean, Keaton had a nice vest on Saturday. Let's riff on the kind of the different types of outfits we see.
Yeah, I think it's a little more elevated. You dress a little bit nicer just because you're not dealing with the elements if you don't want to. It's pretty much a walking Peter Millar catalog for most people, right? You see a few people in their Gucci's. You got to have your soft leather on the carpet inside, not having to tough it out on the concrete out there. But I think he pretty much nailed it, Ross. I mean, it's pretty much, I'd say, more of a basketball dress code than it is a football game. You're not seeing a ton of jerseys and cut off blue.
Well, break that down. Is there a dress code, confirm or deny? I mean, along with your menu for the week, do you also get like, hey, and is it like maybe a club or something where it's like, hey, no jerseys in the upper blue zone. Jerseys are allowed to be worn in the lower blue zone. Is that type of thing happening?
I don't think I've seen a jersey. I'm sure there are some, but I don't think there's a specific dress code. It's not Keeneland or Augusta. I mean, I think you can.
Dude, I'll notice there are some like more blue collar fans down that sit and watch the game in the lower blue zone than you would think. Like there's some people yelling. There's some outfits that you wouldn't find on the golf course. We can evolve this conversation to like what Carolina fans in general wear as the seasons change. I think Saturday was definitely a vest day. I was conflicted on whether to wear shorts or pants. It got kind of hot. I was comfortable in pants, but I think shorts was probably the move. I did go game day polo versus a long sleeve. I know Keaton had pants and a vest. Did you have short sleeves on, Keaton?
I did.
Mr. BZ, what did you wear on Saturday?
I felt like it was my friends and I discussed this as we were getting ready for the day. I personally felt like it was a shorts and t-shirt day or a short sleeve shirt day. And I think that paid off pretty well.
You got a noon kick, so you're not going to deal with 6 p.m., 8 p.m. sundown type temperatures. You're getting the majority of the sun between 11, 12, 1 and 2. So yeah, I think shorts was the move. Like you had a John Player. Let me finish this. John Player had shorts on, a game day polo, so short sleeve polo and a vest. So he went like keep the center warm, but he had his extremities not covered. KB,
I feel like a vest would have been a good call.
Yeah.
I think our ticket sponsor, Ross, David Spencer, really had it nailed completely. He said, "This is my favorite time of year. I like to have my shorts on, but I got my pullover, which I can take off, still have my polo on. That's ideal, right? You're not getting anybody with the zip off pants up there to go short mode. But I think the legs can survive a little bit more than the arms. But the core is key. I think the vest move is a pro move for a fall day in Kenan Memorial.
Yeah, and I would consider this late summer. I mean, it was 69, 70, 75 at the peak. Hey, you'll love this, Wayne. Spencer changed from a Q-zip right before we walked to the stadium into a hoodie, and he had his row. I have a video of it. I did a video like I did with Amphibious. He had his selection of different Q-zips and polos to choose from. He says he never goes anywhere without them. So he was ready to kind of make a shift before walking in based on what the temperature was going to be at tip. Any questions, Wayne, on outfits? I mean, shoes. I like to go sneakers year round unless it's raining. Then I'll take pictures of people wearing duck boots. But anything else, Wayne, you got for us?
No. Talk to me about the game atmosphere in the Blue Zone. So if we've got people who are coordinating which polo and which zip off, are they pretty locked in on fourth down? On third down? I mean, what's kind of the atmosphere? Are people standing up and yelling? Are people sitting down? Tell me what's going on.
I think that the people, if you're outside, you're locked in. And even when I'm inside, I'm still locked in. You just can't hear me. My ass is in the seat. I'm cheering and I'm watching.
I'm not talking about you, but I would say there's certainly some people who could use some improvement.
Where I get lost is inside. I get talking.
Yeah.
And,
You get a lot of people standing by the door, kind of watching from the inside that are distracted. And look, if you have kids, like you got one eye on the kids, you got one eye on the game, running around. But then you have people that are just not at all watching the game. They're inside. It's a social event. That's kind of the allure of it. Yeah. Like it is a place where you can bring the wife and kids. They can have their social time. You can watch the game as well. But then you have people that are inside that are getting pissed and slamming chairs and your Clint Winslow's of the world who are yelling at refs from about 30 feet up, yelling at refs and trying to get the calls. I've had
people who tell me to me and my friends to sit down or to quiet down, and that's like the most blasphemous thing I think at any sporting event.
I think that's when someone shut the.
So, what would you two say, BZ and Keaton? What would you say to fans who see the pictures of the Blue Zone? Hate the Blue Zone. There's so much open seats. What would you say to those people who kind of rag on the Blue Zone? And because it does look bad. It's never full. It's never full. So you always gonna have empty seats there, and that's a view you see a lot on TV.
Well, I think my take on it would be we obviously have some diehard Carolina folks that sit in section 121 every week. That's where they like to be, and it's probably for the same reasons we like the Blue Zone, right? They know the people around them, they're there all the time. But I think the people that are in the Blue Zone, like we talked about earlier, they're contributing to the program in a meaningful way. And if it's the best way for me, my take is if my son can go or my daughter can go to the game, whether they watch for 4 quarters or they watch for 2 minutes, they get to experience it. They're there. They're having a good time. They're getting locked into Carolina in one way or the other. And maybe your wife hates football or your girlfriend really hates football, but she likes going and sit with Susie and Betty and chopping it up about book club that week. Well, who cares, right? They're at the game. They're spending their money. I mean, sure. But I think in Carolina's defense, we have a little bit of a wine and cheese crowd, like most places do. But when, it's a night game in Kenan and we're 8-0 or 7-1, that place is pretty full and it's pretty rowdy. So I think it gets a bad rap. And I think the people that complain about it should buy the tickets and sit their ass in the seats.
Oh, hard to follow that. One thing I've always wondered, and I'm not as well traveled as the others on this chat, but the Blue Zone's spot, because you're always looking at a field goal or an extra point going through. I'd be curious if you actually looked at luxury boxes at other stadiums, and the TV cameras were focused on those luxury boxes, if it wouldn't look somewhat the same, frankly. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I have season tickets at Ole Miss in a suite in the end zone, and I don't know. I think we're pretty locked in the game. Like we're seated a little bit more, but there's certainly people that are inside mingling. But I think the seats are fairly full. Now, I don't know what the view of it's pretty similar to what we have here, right? The suites are on top. There's 2 club levels below. I think it's probably pretty similar. I think people go inside a little bit and they come out. It's probably a little better.
Are there other facilities anybody can think of? I know Clemson has an end zone luxury. I think Virginia Tech has an end zone luxury. Can anybody else think of any?
I would think. I mean, Duke does now. I think everybody does now. I mean, Michigan had a huge one, massive one. I mean, I think every major program has it now. That's what UNC need to get to it. Wake Forest does, I think. That's where you make your money. You make your money on these premium seating. Now, I think the broader question is UNC is overall lacking football fans during a season like this. It's not going to be as full anywhere when you've lost 4 straight now, right? 3 straight, 4 straight, 4 straight, 0-3 in the ACC. BZ, any comments on these kind of the realm we're talking about now with how it looks on TV?
I'll be the first.
Defend yourself.
I'm actually not going to defend myself. I'll be the first to admit, like, it could be way better. But the one thing I'll say is, like, I've seen numerous times, like, people, like, talking about it on Twitter or even, like, UNC Barstool, Instagram, whatever, like, shitting on the Blue Zone. And I'll see this, like, live at the game, and I'll look right across and see a half-empty student section. And at that point, I'm just like, figure your own shit out first before, like, you come at the Blue Zone.
Tweet that out.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, I've seen one of the best fights I've ever seen at a football game in the lower Blue Zone. It was an NC State game. It happened to be a friend of mine, and poor NC State fellow picked the wrong guy, and just got pummeled. Having the Blue Zone politics that I do, the NC State fan got kicked out after getting his ass beat, and the Carolina fan got to stay. So, there's some extra safety there. So it does get rowdy. I will defend the Blue Zone until my death.
It gets rowdy when there's moments for it, but
that's Carolina football.
Yeah. It's particularly bad this season, as if you can imagine.
It also, to kind of move this, it's also like, it's a different world that I think people that only know the Blue Zone, like, don't know a world outside the Blue Zone. Like, they don't know waiting in line by the urinal or waiting in line outside one of those things to get food. Like, if you're born in the Blue Zone and you've last 10 years you've been in the Blue Zone, you don't know what it's like in the outside world. Like, Wayne knows it. Wayne knows the elements, waiting in line, seeing Gene Chizik get off the elevator to go down to the locker room.
You guys have never had that joy. Watching Gene and crew screw it up all, and then you got to walk next to him in the crowd after the game.
And you do see a rougher type of fan. Like, you always hear about a lot of this is referencing IC stuff. Like, you'll see the threads on State Carolina about, man, the usher in section 168 or 123 was being, they're like complaining about the ushers, complaining about people getting kicked out of games and stuff. This is back peak Mac when it was crowded. People were getting hammered and getting kicked out, and you couldn't find room to sit. But I think, like, God, Wayne, who is the guy that's always late to F3 workouts that owns like an commercial apartment company we always talk about? I saw him in the Blue Zone, and, like, I don't think he knows life outside the Blue Zone. I looked at him. He was decked out in Peter Millar and the most fratty, preppy outfit. And, like, this guy doesn't mix with the regular people. He doesn't know what it's like. So I do think you get some of those people as well. All right. Anything else you want to touch on, Wayner?
I mean, on the Blue Zone or on the rest of this season? I mean, what's the general vibe in the Blue Zone on where this program's going? Maybe that's what we need to talk about. The guys that you're at the urinal next to, Ross. Any feedback?
I mean, all right, BZ, what are you and your buddies talking about with the football team? Because dude, you're a generation below us. What are you feeling now? Because you experienced Mac, you were in school for Mac, and now you're seeing kind of the tail end of it.
I feel like you have to expect Mac to be gone after this season. I never thought that there was a chance that they'd get rid of him mid-season. I don't think Carolina would do him like that. But I don't see a future where he's going to be the head coach next year. And I feel like most people would agree on that.
I think that's the cool thing about the Blue Zone, whether it be Mac coaching, like those conversations are going on in the stadium, whether it be the Pope box or the Blue Zone or the Chancellor's box or the suites, above. Those conversations are happening. I can't say that I'm necessarily involved in them, but the people, the powers that be are there. And when you see, Mr. Montgomery walking around, at a Rams club, and he's making sure he's hitting the people that are most important, who are giving all this money every year to say, well, gosh, we just lost 4 games in a row, blah, blah, blah. I agree. I don't think Mac's gone at the end of the year. And I think Mac did a wonderful job of, bringing the program back together. And we're kind of we're in the Wild West right now, right? With NIL and everything else. And I will say, I wanted to make this point, not to get on a tangent, but the championship programs, they have the people who are the hat and t-shirt crowd, or your general fan crowd. They're finding a way to get them to give what they can give while maximizing the Blue Zone crowd. And that's one thing I don't think Carolina does a great job of. They keep going the same well over and over and over again, the same people, instead of taking this mass approach like Clemson's done, maybe not in NIL, but IPTAY years and years ago. I mean, hell, at Ole Miss last weekend, you could round up your concession stands. It may have been 30 cents, but
Wow.
30 cents, 30 cents, 30 cents, that, it's 65,000 people it adds up. And I just feel like we have not been very creative on the NIL front to really be a program that competes. And we just keep going back to the same people over and over again. But those people are in the Blue Zone and other premium areas.
Yeah, I mean, because of a good point. I think the Rams Club needs to do a better job of I'm sure some Rams Club people are gonna be listening. Like, they need to reach out to graduating alums and the common fan, and getting young people to join the Rams Club, and get the NIL aspect of it outside of the Rams Club. Like, get common fan to donate a certain amount per year as well. I mean, I don't like the idea of fans kind of paying for it. It's kind of the way it is. It's a conversation we're having every day about how NIL supported. But yeah, I think you're right, Keith. I think IPTAY is a great example of everyone giving something, and it adds up. You think about how many Carolina basketball fans are out there that would give $100 to get. If everybody gave $100, you could get AJ DeBonce. So yeah. Mr. BZ, you're
$1,000 a piece to get him.
Yeah. Mr. BZ, you're having some background ambient noise that I'm trying to mute when you're not talking.
It might be my computer fan going off. I can try to back it up.
It's overheating because of all the Blue Zone takes coming out of that computer,
dude.
Live from Manhattan.
Exactly.
All right. Hey, Keaton, anything else, Mr. BZ, about the Blue Zone? I mean, your thoughts about, are your friends football first? That's a good question, too. Is your fraternity your friends football first?
It's a great question. I think it's a split. I think there are some who would say football first, some who would say basketball. I think right about now, everyone's kind of on the wave of, putting their excitement towards basketball.
Yeah.
Just with the way football's going. But I mean, we had some good years. I mean, I just graduated. Our 4 years at UNC, we had some good football, and we had, Sam to cheer for, Drake to cheer for. A lot of exciting stuff. So I feel like we were all pretty locked in during our 4 years, at least. We just, when we were back, I was talking to the younger guys that we know, and like I had to say, like, I feel bad for you, honestly, with the football that they have to watch.
Well, it was horrible when I was in school.
I have a comment and a question for you, Ross. I think that my friends are probably definitely football first, and I think it's because of the day and the experience that football is, right? It's not just the game. I think the game is secondary to the tailgate and the camaraderie and the friendships and everything you get out of a football game. It's a full day, right? You get precious 6-7 Saturdays a year to be in Kenan and cheer on the Heels, win or lose. So I think there's nothing more special than that. Obviously, really special experiences and times with the basketball team. I was in FedEx Forum last night for the first game or first scrimmage, and screaming like it was the Final Four. So that felt good to have some excitement back in the veins. But Ross, I'm curious from a media perspective and kind of your not maybe first time being more of a fan side of it, but how would you compare and contrast the blue zone to the press box and or just that whole experience of being a fan? The press box has some good spreads. I've snuck in there a few times with you before. It's pretty elite. So what's your take, comparing to working to more of a fan experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's a loaded question. You know, I've always been a fan, and I always want UNC to win. But when you are media and you have to work for 3-4 hours after the game, you take losses a lot. You don't take them as hard when you're in media, obviously, because you're writing about the team and you have to be critical and you have to think about asking Mac and the coordinators tough questions after the game or on Monday for press conferences. So you're approaching the game completely different. Now I'm not covering UNC, so I'm looking to have a good time. I've been in the press box twice, and went to the Blue Zone at halftime of the JMU game, sat with Clint Winslow, and then I went to, and then obviously against Georgia Tech, I sat with KB and Co. the whole game. So, I mean, I want it to be a fun experience, and I want to go as a fan. But yeah, it's different. I mean, the press box is boring. It's boring without me in there. It's boring once you lose some of the characters. You've got people that I won't mention, but Adam Smith is great. He's talkative. I mean, set the scene here. I mean, Adam Smith is talkative. He is the two-time Big Hitters Only guest. I mean, he is running the show in there now. And it is nice to have play-by-play. So you hear every tackle, you're also breaking down like, was that a penalty? Was that targeting? Was that a first down? And like, you kind of be active and kind of talking it with the people that are running the show there. There used to be better food before COVID. It's not as good now, but I mean, it's kind of boring in there. Like you kind of got to tone it down. You got to tone down the energy. You can't be chopping it up too much, but it is also cool to, you do get a different perspective. You have a great view of the whole thing, but there's nothing better than to have a couple cocktails before the game and get a little loose. And I definitely missed it. I got to kind of think of my strategy as I exit the media world from a certain perspective, but kind of keep a foot in and enter more of the, coming from Greensboro with the wife and kids and hanging out with Wayne and Keaton and meeting up with tailgates and kind of figure out my strategy there. But especially for basketball, you always want UNC to go far. Anyway, speaking of basketball, Keaton, give us your take on UNC last night. You were in the building. Try to refrain from killing a kid's confidence after an exhibition game.
I think there was a lot of flashes of good. I think Cadeau looked a lot better. I was happy about him. I love Trimble. I thought he played his tail off. I think Withers is still disappointing, but could be a good role player. We can't count on him. I think that I'm not sure we have an inside presence that is going to make us a factor in the long run. I was hoping the freshman would have been a little bit more special, but it's an exhibition. It's early. I had been a long-time Hubert hater, and he's restored some of my faith in recent years, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to excel. I'm disappointed in our NIL, and I'm sure he is too with where we landed on the big man front, but I'm not sure we have the firepower down low unless the freshmen can really emerge and we can just run and gun people and go small all year.
I thought Jalen Washington looked okay though.
Yeah, I thought he looked okay.
Yeah,
he hit a 3, right? His free throws were great. Withers' free throws were good. I don't know how good Memphis is. I don't think they've been as good as they have been, but I mean, I'll tell you, it got pretty rowdy there at the end. Like, it was a good little crowd. I think Memphis is physical. I think they play good basketball, and I thought it was a good exhibition, a good first test, and we did what we needed to do to win. So we'll get better as we get into through the first of the year, and hopefully test out the ACC, and you never know.
Mr. BZ, did you watch? Sorry,
I did. I thought, I mean, you mentioned the freshmen, but first game, can't really expect much out of them. Like, they're going to be all over the place for a little bit just before they get settled in. Ross, you mentioned Jay Wash. I thought Jalen Washington looked like fine. I mean, I wasn't complaining about him. Seth, incredible. He like clearly has taken like a huge leap in terms of like finishing and just ball control. Um, I don't know. I'm excited to watch everyone run once RJ's back. Like you said, we might not have as much strength down low, but I think there's gonna be a fast team, fast pace. I think everyone can kind of contribute in that, and I'm excited to watch them.
I think that's a good point, right? Without RJ, it's hard to really tell what we are because he's the engine that runs it. It was cool to see Mondo in the building. I thought that was pretty nice that he was there. He was like courtside, so that was kind of cool.
He did better on the mic than I thought he would.
He'll be great. Jalen Washington, 17 points, 6 for 7 from the field, 2 for 2 from 3, 3 for 4 from the free throw line. I mean, if you can get that production out of him, 6 rebounds, 17 points in 25 minutes, you'll take that. I thought Jalen Washington was serviceable. I have the stats right in front of me.
Most disappointing person was our transfer from Belmont, Cade
Tyson.
He's supposed to be the best shooter in the country, right? The best transfer shooter in the country, 3-point shooter.
He shot 46%, I think 46 or 43% from 3 last year at Belmont.
I think it was 46.
Yeah,
that's another thing. Like that might take some time to settle in. Like the shots might fall, but in terms of everything outside of the shooting, like it didn't look that good.
He's no Brady Manick. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. I text with some people and it's like you hope it's not a mix between Justin Pierce and Pete Nance.
Dude, I don't understand the problem with shooters coming to Carolina and then just
I know it's frustrating. He was 1 for 6 from 3, 3 for 10 from the field, looked tentative, didn't shoot. Like Hubert was yelling his ass off at him to get him to shoot. Like he was scared to shoot. I think he had he's tall. He's 6'7", 6'8". Like he should be shooting over these people. He was very tentative to shoot. I worry that the pressure is going to get to him if he has more games like this where he goes, started off like 0 for 3, 0 for 4, finishes 1 for 6 where he's missing threes. You saw that with Cormac Ryan last year as well. Like shooting is a slump. You get in these slumps and it gets in your head and he hasn't had this kind of pressure. Like you think people give a shit about Belmont basketball? Like Carolina is probably I would say Carolina's the second most pressurized college basketball team behind Kentucky in terms of fan and social media
pressure. Cameron Indoor like Cormacker did, I'll be just fine with him.
Cormacker, I loved him. I mean, he's a great defender, great dog. Now I got one thing. One thing, Wayne.
Wait, Ross, who did you pin? Who did you pin as your dogs this season? Before we continue,
I said it's probably gonna be like a Seth or an Ian, but I was asking Twitter about who the dog should be.
I think Elliot. I think Elliot might have that dog in him.
Yeah, I don't know. He might be too small. He's like a Chihuahua.
I wish he shot a little bit more last night.
Yeah, he looked great though. Double with assists. He had 13 assists. All right, Wayne. What do you think about? I think keep maybe UNC basketball first. What do you think, Wayne?
Well, I mean, this podcast is supposed to be about the Blue Zone, and here we are. I mean, I kind of want to check us. It's October 16th, and we're talking basketball. Like that's the problem right there. Shouldn't be talking basketball until December, and that's kind of UNC football in a nutshell right now.
They bring Gunnar Brewer back, and he'll fix all the problems.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Bring GD Black to Blue Heaven.
I've always thought that Keaton loves UNC basketball because easy to cheer for UNC basketball, and Ole Miss is his alma mater. So Ole Miss football, UNC basketball.
Hey, look, I've already hit the over under on games attended. Okay, and I'll probably go to one more. So I'm showing up when we're done. So I don't want to hear it from you.
And I think this year I'm over football. Like I was kind of done with it. I think after NC State last year, and then the JMU game, I usually in football, this. I mean, if we're still in it, let's talk football until the games don't matter. Well, I think we're at a point now where the games don't really matter.
Well, speaking,
go ahead, Wayne.
Well, speaking of that, and something that I'm sort of surprised, Ross, I thought you brought it up, and I mean, it's a very sad state of affairs. But man, if I'm Amari and Hampton right now, I mean, when do you just shut it down? When do you just kind of shut it down? I mean, I hate it. I hate it because I can't imagine what that's like as a player to sort of say, hey, man, I'm not toting the rock anymore. But then I think of Jaquarius Conley and think of, returning a punt against Wofford, and look how his life has changed. I mean, man, I'm surprised there hadn't been more talk about at this stage of the game about Hampton kind of saying, I'm going to be a a player coach for the rest of the season.
I've gotten more comments about that, what I said on that podcast about Amari and Hampton. I didn't think it was that crazy of a comment. It was 2 podcasts ago, just talking about, hey, if I was Amari and Hampton, like I would start thinking about like what's he playing for? What's the point of him suiting up and putting tread on those tires? Even if he stays healthy, you're still gonna get 300 more carries, and you only have a certain amount of shelf life in the NFL for a running back. You're out of the league. You could be out of the league by the time you're 25 if you're not healthy. So if I was him, I would not fault him for stopping right now. And even though like it's got to be so tough to kind of quit on your teammates,
yeah.
But I think the rational fan will be okay with it. Just like I was okay with Drake not playing or Josh Downs not playing. But at this point, he could be a second round pick and make a lot of money in the NFL. And the more he plays in college, there's a good chance his NFL career could be shortened by a year or two, or be higher risk for injury, in his rookie year or his sophomore year.
Yeah, I agree. And don't you think the point, I think it's interesting with the way we are at football now. Like it's almost like basketball with 12-team playoff. Like if you're not in the playoff, what's the point? Who cares? Like, who cares if you're going to El Paso to the Frosty's Snowflake Bowl or whatever the hell it is?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Well, and with the breakdown of regional rivalries too. NC State's playing Cal. Like, who really cares about that? Like, seriously, it's an irrelevant football game. Who cares?
Dude, I can see that like argument with like just a few games left, but I feel like 5 games is a lot. Like,
that's true.
I think that's a philosophical question. If your goal, if only thing that matters is college football playoff, then.
But the last 3 years, we were in that conversation, right? Like we were there with Drake and Sam. We were in the conversation.
Yeah,
and now we're back to Nate Elliott days. It's bad.
Yeah, I think competing for ACC championships. I think it's got to get. Yeah, this is a broader conversation of like, at what point do you separate the haves from the have-nots, where it's Big Ten and SEC and maybe a couple other teams, and there's this level of Stanford and Duke and BC that aren't competing on that same level that can play for their own championship.
Conversation, they're 5-1.
Yeah, traditionally. You're right. What is UNC playing for? Like, what? It's just a pride thing, and what does State Cal mean right now? What does UNC Virginia mean in a couple years? Anyway, all right, it's getting kind of depressing and sad. Blue Zone, anything else?
Ross, I want before we log off, I want a final review breakdown of your experience and rate it 1 through 10.
Blue Zone's great. I wish came with a more of a hungry belly. I got the breakfast taco bar, but I want to try everything. I want to go in there with a ravenous appetite and try everything. I think they should make alcohol part of it. Should be free alcohol. You should pay a premium price.
Whoa.
And have unlimited alcohol. I think people would pay for that. I think that's worth it. KB, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. Or at least make liquor available. That would be a nice addition. I don't know what the regulation is there, but
yeah, I think it's doable.
It should be. Now, granted, it's way easier to get it in, and the bathroom's not backed up, so you can mix a drink if you want.
Yeah,
but.
I will say it is easy. Like, it is easy to go get a drink without waiting in line. It's easy to go get a soda. The bathroom, there's no lines. I do have a lot of good friends in the Blue Zone. Like, you see, you're gonna see Brian Chacos, you're gonna see Will Scroggs, you're gonna see Ben Gilden, you're gonna see all these guys that you like. They're in. Clint Winslow is. I know exactly where Clint Winslow is gonna be, yelling his ass off every game. Jeff Finn, shout out. I'm gonna see people. I know they're gonna be in there. Whereas, with GA regular seating, you kind of have to go to them to find. All right, I gotta go to section. 120 row 3. Then kind of get past Walmart, Wanda. Get through. You kind of have to inch past like grandma from Eastern NC to go sit with your buddy, where it's a lot easier to kind of move and operate. You're paying for convenience and easier game day experience in the Blue Zone. And you run into guys like Mr. BZ in the Upper Blue Zone, and yeah, you do feel. I mean, I didn't feel like worthy of being in there. It would be my thing. All right, we got 50 minutes going here, Mr. BZ. The podcast is a big hit with you and your buddies. What do y'all like about the pod? What are the vibes around Big Hitters Only? I mean, dude, I don't like to like brag, but I mean, like it's a lot of attention. But you're a persona on. I'm a persona on Twitter, and people recognize me. But dude, the Deke brothers like loved me. I was getting I was flicking up with all these Deke brothers. They asked to take a picture. I was like, who are these people? And I feel like I'm a big hit with like this like 18 to 24 male age group, which is odd, but I mean, it's fun.
Dude, honestly, I wish I could remember like the exact moment that you became such like a local legend amongst us. But I mean, around like freshman, sophomore, junior year, like I don't know, we've just been following you since then, and I feel like since our like our own Twitter community has grown, like it's just even added more followers to you. But I don't know, man. I think a lot of people just have a lot of respect for you. Like you keep it real with Carolina, you keep it real with UNC athletics, and I don't know, you're a fun persona on Twitter. So whenever we get the chance to interact, like it's fun for us.
Yeah,
but
it's,
yeah,
you tell
I
people
mean,
to like
everyone
get
was
it. Like, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. It's fine.
No, yeah, I think you guys like get it. You get kind of the
yeah, exactly, precisely.
Thing.
Like I feel like
don't
we're
take
kind
it
of
serious.
yeah.
Ross, I think that the only compliment I really like to give you is you have a great a voice for radio. But you know, I think you do, especially as you've transitioned even more. But I think you did a great job of it at Inside Carolina too. Is you're not afraid to kind of push the limit a little bit. Like you got a little sarcasm in there. Like you kind of take some of the things from the message boards or you know our conversations or whatever it may be, and it's like it's not you know total respect for Art Chansky, but like you're not asking the same damn question that's asked every press conference everywhere across the country, right? Like you're mixing it up a little bit, and I think it's a kudos to you. You have great relationships with the coaches or the people around. Like you're not just showing up and like you know doing the job. Like you really put a lot into it, and you are a fan. And I think that's a neat perspective, and you do give criticism. You don't just wear. You know, you're okay to say we suck this year, right? Like, and I think that's what people allure to. And I think you've done a great job with the podcast, and I'm honored to be on it with, you know, with two of my best friends and a new friend with Mr. BZ.
I think another part is like doing a podcast on the Blue Zone. Kind of, you talk. No one's talking about this. No one's talking about this in the audio format. So it's kind of like a unique thing. Like, but people do talk about the Blue Zone. It's kind of, you know, kind of treating it like a parody, but like it is kind of, I try to bring a little bit of a different perspective to how people are watching UNC football. Wayne?
You're blending text thread energy with Big J skills. Mad respect for that. Let's close this thing down.
All right. That's it, guys. 5:33. Appreciate you listening to the Big Hitters Only podcast. It's 10:32 on Wednesday, October 16th. Thank you to Connor behind the scenes and to Garrett behind the scenes on this podcast. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend. Anybody who's in the Blue Zone, share it with them. This is a different kind of podcast. Got off to a rocky start with the initial Wayne food comment, but we hit our stride. I think we hit on a lot of good topics. Appreciate Keaton, Mr. VZ, and Wayne from logging on.